All right. Let's see how it goes. I will try to be as fast as I can. I'm usually very fast, so hold on to your seats. So first of all, who am I? I am El Brujo, as you can see there. I've been for many years an open source maintainer. Those are some of the libraries that I might, just some of them. I have many more. But as you can see, most of them are tools for Erlang developers in general. Some are libraries actually to be used in production, but most of them are for just to work with Erlang every day. Elvis is one of those. I am also a member of the education working group, and my job there is mostly mentoring people at Exercism.io and others. If you are starting with Erlang and you want somebody to guide you through your first project, talk to me. It's not. I do it for the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation. Like, it's not paid. Like, I just do it because I like it. But I am also a Catan player, paddle player. I live in Catalonia, and table tennis aficionado. Those very, very young people are my colleagues at the club. I train with them twice a week, and they beat my ass every time. So what are we talking about now? Elvis exists has been part of the Erlang ecosystems for about a decade already. But we never took the time to give people an update on its progress. The last time we talked about Elvis, it was in a monthly webinar that was hosted by Erlang Solutions in October 2014, like a decade or more ago. So it's time. I thought it was a good time to give you an update on what happened on these 10 years. But remember, the ecosystem back then, when we created Elvis at Inaka doesn't exist anymore. So that's one of the things. But also, there was no Rivar 3 back then. The Rivar existed, but it was kind of magical then, not always reliable. Everybody used their own building tools. There was no formatter. There was no other static analyzers except for dialyzer, and it was completely incomprehensible and very, very slow. And many other things. There were no language servers. Programming in Erlang was tricky back then and risky. So we decided to create a tool that at least would help you detect some of the things that you may be doing incorrectly. Of course, we don't create the concept of that. That's a linter, and that's what we created. We called it Elvis because it was based on Hound, which was a linter for Ruby. If you don't understand the connection, I can explain later. But fast forward 10 years, and now we have Rivar 3 as the de facto tool for building Erlang projects. We have a very much improved Xref and dialyzer. And we have others, like equalizer, gradualizer. We have multiple formatters. We have at least 2 language servers. We have tools for detecting Oxbow code, for detecting typos, spell checkers, things to help you add types to your system, and many, many more. And Elvis is still relevant in this ecosystem because it works better if you combine it with all of them. One of the principles behind the rules in Elvis is that it analyzes code that compiles well with no warnings. Dialyzer is run on that code too, so Elvis doesn't do dialyzer work, not Xref work, not Hank work. If you don't know what Hank is or the other tools, go check them out. They are very useful, and it's stuff that it will improve your life as an Erlang developer a lot. So Elvis today is no longer it's no longer a tool built for, maintained by Inaka, because Inaka doesn't exist. So we now are a team of 3 open source enthusiasts, Bor, Paulo, and myself. It still works with Erlang MK, Rivar 3 as a standalone script, and also as an Erlang application, but it's generally used through River3 lint, which is a plugin for River3. It supports OTP 24 up to today. Once OTP 29 is released, it will support OTP 25 up to today. It's so moving forward. It has more than 75 rules, so more than 75 things that can detect in your code and help you improve it. And they are grouped in 7 or so rule sets. I will explain what that is in a moment. So one of the key parts of Elvis was that while the rules help you, will tell you stuff that you can improve in your code, they are not mandatory, and they are mostly configurable, and you can tweak it as much as you want to reflect the way your team works with your code. And so the key part of that is the configuration. In the last presentation 10 years ago, it was a list of atoms with the rules, period, that's it. But now it has many more options. As of today, this is Erlang configuration, right? It's a configuration file, generally elvis.config, but it's a config that you can put in river config or wherever you want. It's Erlang terms all the way. And the main part is a list of maps, each one with that thing, directories and filter, which lets you decide where to point Elvis to your files. So in this case, it will check every .erl file under the src folder. And then you specify what kind of rules you want to run on those files. Since there are many rules, you can put the list of rules if you want, as it was before, or you can choose a rule set. And a rule set is basically a predefined set of rules that apply, that are generally useful for, in this case, Erlang files. But if you want the rule set, but not exactly, you can always add exceptions in the rules list. But if that's even that is not enough for you, you can define. You can also have rule sets for HRL files, for river config, for git ignore, and for Beam files. A while back, somebody added a neat tool to Elvis, so Elvis can also lint Beam files. For instance, you can run Elvis on your Elixir files. If you compile them, you can run it on the Beams. I don't know what the result of that will be, but it's there. You can try. Let me know if it works. Amazing. And if all of that is not enough, you can also define your own rule set. You put a name for it, you put the rules in it, and then you use it wherever you want. And that's all about configuration. The only 3 other options that we have, which are about to change, we are in the process of simplifying this, but they basically dictate how the output is printed, if it's with colors, if it's for colorblind people like me, black and white. We don't care about all this fancy stuff. Or if it is parsable by other tools, like with the file name, colon, the line, etc., etc. So it can be piped, and you can use it for other things. And now, with all that configuration, Elvis will run the rules. The rules of Elvis are many, and most of them were created after the previous version that I showed, so in these last 10 years. I will not be able to get into all of them. And so what I will do in the something like 10 minutes I have from now until lunch is I will go through my favorite ones to show you what it can detect. And if you want more, you can find me outside. I can show you everything else. They are also properly documented in the Elvis core repository. So if you want, you can just check there. But let's do. OK, this is one of my favorites. I am usually very annoyed with people naming the same thing with different names. I like consistency above everything. And so when I find stuff like that, I tend to create huge pull requests with the names all corrected to the same, in this case, casing. We are working on improving this so it can actually detect similarities. So if you do user_ID and you know that it's the same as user without the underscore ID, it can also detect it. But for now, it's just casing. If you use different casing for the same thing, Elvis will emit a warning. Then this is one of the last ones that we added. It's a very simple rule. Basically, if you are, it's a very simple rule to explain. If you have a function, and an anonymous function with some arguments, and within it, the only thing you're doing is calling another function with the same arguments in the same order, Elvis will emit a warning that you can actually call the function directly. For once, this reduces, it eliminates one reduction, right? You don't have to jump into the anonymous function. But it also, we found that it very much improves the reach of dialyzer and Hank. Dialyzer always gets kind of tripped if you use the anonymous function in between because it has no specs, it has to do the success typing and whatnot. The other function has specs and usually gets more actionable results from dialyzer by writing that way. And it's also prettier. I like the second format much more. So this one, it's like that. It has a lot of edge cases. You can see them in the test. And Elvis considers most of that. But if you find another edge case that I didn't find, just let me know. Then this is the most, I think this one is the one that took us more to implement. Like it was like a good 3 months of coding to get this one right. It was created by Juan Facorro when he was at Inaca, and he was very annoyed. Like most of the rules come from the same place. Like we read some code, and we are like, no, what are you doing here? So we come up with an Elvis rule. That's how they are created. In this case, what Juan implemented was a rule that basically checks the shape of your code, and if it's the same in 2 places, given a certain threshold of complexity, it will recommend you to abstract that thing to its own function. And it has improved my code. Personally, I tend to repeat code, copy and paste very much. It has improved at least my code for a couple of years already. Also, full of edge cases. Like the test suite for this one is very, very large, but it produces very few false positives. None, I think. So this is another one of the most recent ones. It will warn you if you mix guard operators, like on that case where you have part of the guard is written with a semicolon and the other one with or else and stuff like that. So it recommends you to use the same style in all. Depending on how you configure it, it recommends you to use the same style in all your guards, or in all the guards for the same block, or in the guard. Like you can configure it that so that it only warns you if you use semicolon and or else or and also whatever in the same thing. But this rule has something that I like a lot. Let's do it this way. Do you know the difference between using or else and using semicolons in a guard? It's entirely not the same. And it seems like it is. The effect is similar. But guards are not Erlang expressions. So if you use semicolon, you're not writing an expression with a semicolon in the middle. They are actually 2 separate expressions. And or else is a single one. So guards are like collections of, the guard is x = a. So that thing has 2 guards. But the other one, the one with or else, it has only 1. I learned that by implementing this. I relearned that by implementing this rule. This one is copied from Credo for Elixir. Basically, obvious results that are probably, hopefully, left over from adding and removing stuff in the code and not realizing it. This one also has a lot of edge cases. So Elvis will only emit a warning if it's very, very sure that you are comparing the same thing or removing the same thing or applying the same an obvious operation to the same thing on both sides. Hopefully, it will never emit a warning if you are doing something reasonable. And then there are many no rules. We have a whole compilation of stuff that is unused, old, not recommended, etc. In particular, for HRL files, which, if you know me, my recommendation is usually don't use HRL files, period. But if you have to use them, at least don't nest them or don't put the specs in the HRL file, put them where the function is. And obviously, don't share the types. In that way, Erlang has a very nice mechanism of exporting types that you can share like in a proper way instead of having multiple types with the same name if you put them on the HRL files. With all those rules, what you get is HRL files with only macros, which is bad, but yeah, more maintainable. And this one is very tricky to explain. I will do my best. The idea here is that anything goes between case and off. It's an Erlang expression. You can put whatever, right? And you can bind variables there and use them below. And that's confusing at best. And also sometimes the variable leaks because it's used outside of the case. Very tricky stuff. And if you wonder who writes code like that, it's us. I actually found Paulo writing code like that, and I was like, no, Paulo, in a code review, what are you doing here? And he was like, OK, a new rule. And so we created this one. And a slightly similar one as the one before, where the results were obvious. In this case, the results are not obvious. But remember I told you, Elvis assumes that you use it on code that compiles, passes dialyzer, etc. Sometimes this rule doesn't apply because you have stuff that can return true, false, or bananas. But if your functions return Boolean values, period, and they are checked for returning Boolean values, instead of writing equal true, you can do just the function or different from false. You can do the function or different from true. You can use not, etc. Which is clearer code in general, and sometimes it removes a comparison, not big deal, but as I said, not always, not to use everywhere, but that's why we have two Erlang file rule sets. One for the general case, which doesn't include this one, and a strict one where these and other rules like this are included. And I think I'm running out of time, so this is, I will only speak about this one and finish here. Do you know that macros can have, I hate macros, that's clear, but do you know that macros can have any number of arguments, or 0 arguments, or no arguments? And 0 arguments and no arguments are not the same. Those are two different things. And if you have a macro that has no arguments, but you use it with parentheses, it's a different thing than having a macro with parentheses, and yeah, crazy stuff. So this at least helps you be consistent. If it has no parentheses, it's a value. If it has parentheses, it works kind of like a function, right? We do our best. Not all macros can be analyzed, but if the macro can be analyzed by Elvis, i.e. the content of the macro is not some part of thing floating around, it will help you detect this case and suggest the proper usage. And I have many more rules. You can find me outside, and I can tell you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, do we have a question here in the audience? I have Actually, one small question. What if I have a rule in my organization that is different from the rules that you provided, or the opposite?
I will show you in a second. There, no, this is not. This one. This one. This one. You can make your own rules. If I was planning that if this didn't fit, as it didn't, I could show you in the lightning talk, but we have too many lightning talks. So it's 4 steps, and it's actually the process of writing rules was improved heavily during the last 4 months by Paulo, and now it's basically copy-paste from other rules most of the time.
Thank you so much. With that, give a warm round of applause to Brujo. And we're going to have lunch break.